We're good. Good morning and welcome to our next panel of the day. Can you all please take your seats? Thank you. This panel is a special panel titled Belonging in Florida, AILA in Action. Just a quick note, there is no CLE for this session, but it is one of the most important sessions we're doing here. I would like to introduce Alan Orr, former AILA president from Washington, D.C., to begin proceedings.
Thank you very much. So first, I want to thank our panelists for coming because they are all locals from the Florida, Orlando area, and they showed up this morning without being paid to give their time to AILA in a donation type of way. And they spoke to me about this panel on in. So first, before they say a word, I'm going to thank them for just doing that, for showing up this morning. So as we start to grow as an organization, what we're talking about today is belonging. And belonging is the feeling that I want you to feel in the AILA community with us together, that this is where you could have conversations, communications, grow, and live and thrive without any burden of having to be concerned of naturally who you are. So that's what the concept of belonging is. And the concept of this panel today is to let you know what the organizations in Florida are doing on the ground from them. It is important when you're talking to a group that is being affected that you listen to them so they can tell you how you can help them achieve their goal, rather than tell them what their goal is and how they're going to achieve it. So that's the starting point of the organization. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, which is also important, tell you who they represent and tell you their organization. And we're going to get you their bios. They're going to be on the website later, but these are phenomenal people. Please, sir, Samuel. Yes.
Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. My name is Samuel Volche Santiago. I'm the Florida State Director for the American Business Immigration Coalition. The American Business Immigration Coalition is a group of over 1,500 CEOs across the country that work in a bipartisan way to achieve immigration reform at the federal level. Here in Florida, we have about 300 members. And I came to this work because I came to the United States as a political asylee from Venezuela in 2010. And my family is a mixed status family. And thank you all so much for being here and for the opportunity. I'm based here in Orlando, Florida, by the way.
Hello, I'm thrilled to be here. I want to thank Alan for having us. I'm Debbie DeLand, and I'm with the Florida National Organization for Women. We're the largest civil rights organization in the country fighting for women's rights, girls' rights, LGBTQIA rights. We think they're all so important and they're all being attacked in Florida. And that's really where I come from.
Thank you. Ms. Tessa.
Good morning, everyone. I am Tessa Petit. I serve as the Executive Director of the Florida Immigrant Coalition. I am originally from Haiti. I have been in this country for 22 years now. And at the Florida Immigrant Coalition, our belief is that everyone, including immigrants, should have the right to love and live without fear in this state. And so with this, and our work is in creating a Florida, not only that looks like its entire community of Floridians, but also creating a Florida that is welcoming for all, not just immigrants.
Hello, good morning. Corey Scherer. I'm outreach specialist for Engage Florida, which is a Muslim voter outreach and advocacy group. Number one thing is I was born in Brooklyn, New York, but then grew up in Jamaica. My dad was Prime Minister of Jamaica, third Prime Minister, the most honorable Hugh Scherer, but then moved to Florida and I went to Blanche Ely High School, then to Georgetown University, graduated a government degree, and then came back into my community working, trying to advocate initially in IT, and then I just went full on. I also want to say that I'm Jasmine Barnaby's son. So You know, we come from women, and so empowering women and women's rights should not be an issue in this world. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour. My name is Marlène Bastien, and I'm the founder and executive director of FAM, Family Action Network Movement. We are a social advocacy group in Miami, and for the past 41 years, we've been advocating for the rights of immigrants. It is our bedrock belief that immigrants contribute to build the fabric, the social, economic, and political fabric of this country, and they deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and that refugees who comes to our shores deserves the right of due process. Miami, yes. Miami, as you may know, is at the intersection of climate gentrification and immigration. So people there are fighting to stay, and then they're also fighting racist policies aimed at disturbing and criminalizing them when they are the ones who every day keep their end of the bargain to make sure that this country is as strong as it is. So in regard to climate gentrification, it is also our bedrock belief that if you build your communities out of sweat and tears and sacrifices, you have a God's given right to live in them. So we are, yes. So FAM provides wraparound services to our members, but we also organize them and we give them the tools to contribute to their own empowerment, enfranchisement, and transformation. And thank you, AILA, for having us here today.
Thank you for coming. So when we start thinking about what belonging and how to get to belonging, because it just doesn't naturally happen all the time, we need to first of all make an effort. And that's what we've done today with AILA, is by having this panel, no CLE, to make an effort. That's number one. Number two, you have to be patient and willing to make some mistakes and to be corrected along the way. But third, you have to focus on your similarities rather than your differences to grow. So right now, I want to talk about how in Florida, your groups are working together to solve some of these big issues that are facing LGBTQ, transnationals, immigrants, Black education, African Americans, and women. So Corey, in your background, you've worked on a lot of coalitions. So tell us how that has worked in the past. I'm sorry, Samuel.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I think just in general, what we need to understand in the state of Florida is that we're a very diverse state, right? We have 23 million people that come from all over the world. We have young people, we have older people. We are at the intersection of a lot of different identities. And in order for us to be able to accomplish change, we're gonna have to bring all of these together. And I'll give you an example. In this past legislative session was brutal. And you all saw the headlines all over the country about what was going on here. And all of our groups get attacked. Labor unions, the LGBTQ community, women, immigrants, Black people, brown people, Asian American people, right? Every single group was attacked in many different ways. And the goal of this legislative session was to attack all these different groups, thinking that the groups were not going to unite. So when you were responding to one thing, they were already onto the second and third thing, right? And a lot of the work that we've done here in the state is to try to bring all of these coalitions together. In my work through ABIC, what we try to do is bring in unlikely partners into the work. So for instance, we launched a campaign to protect in-state tuition for dreamers, because that's what the governor wanted to get rid of, in-state tuition for dreamers. And in that coalition, what we actually did, we did a lot of behind the scenes work to actually convince the Republican legislators that they shouldn't focus on this. And we work very closely with the teachers unions, for instance, making sure that, you know, they were out there talking about their stories with dreamers in the classroom and how, you know, they contribute to our communities. We work really closely, obviously, with the business community, mobilizing our business champions to call the representatives and make sure that, that even from this really bad immigration bill, that this was not an issue that they were going to get rid of. And then we also worked really closely with the Latino evangelicals. And we understood that while we didn't agree on a lot of issues, the immigration was one of the issues that they cared about. So really finding these different partners that are not necessarily focused on this immigration work and bringing them into the fold so they can go fight. While at the same time, where possible, helping connect our business base to other people that were working on other issues and really figuring out how we can come together. And we've seen it, I think, here in Orlando, and welcome to Orlando, y'all. Particularly, after the Pulse nightclub massacre, there was a lot of conversation here about, demonizing the Muslim communities because of this incident. And that's actually not what happened. After Pulse, actually people came together, and the Muslim community here in Orlando, along with other faith groups, came together with the LGBTQ community to denounce hatred. And if you take something from here, is that while the fight here is very difficult, it is one that we're fighting together. So thank you.
Ms. Debbie, in the women's movement, how they try to divide women to other women in the group of abortion, trans women. Explain how your organization is able to hold together the coalition of women movement in all these different areas, please.
Well, immigration reform is definitely a women's issue. We work on the National Organization for Women works on racial justice, immigration justice, LGBTQIA rights, and we partner. Most of what we do is partner and join coalitions or start coalitions. And an example is we had something called Occupy Tallahassee or Occupy Tally to protest. We knew we were going to lose on the 6-week ban. We just knew we were going to lose. And but we can't, in Florida, with so much autocracy going on, so much fascism going on, you can't stay silent. You have to protest no matter what. So we were in Tally, and the city arrested 12 of us for peacefully demonstrating against the 6-week abortion ban. But then we still protested across from the House, and they passed the bill. I still remember echoing in my ears all the men's voices saying yay. So we partner with League of Women Voters. We partner with Florida Rising. We're part of the FRF Coalition, which is Floridians for Reproductive Rights. And then also, and this is an acronym that's pretty close to that one, which is FPF, Floridians Protecting Freedom. And that's the overall organization executive leadership team that's running this whole statewide effort to get abortion access on the 2024 ballot. So almost everything we do is coalitions and teams. Thank you.
That's so recently we've had a lot of conversations in the Black community about what Black means, right? Whether you're Black because you're a descendant of the enslaved, or if you're Black because you come from the Caribbean, or if you're Black because you come from the continent. And in your movement, in your immigrants' right movement, can you tell everyone what Black people, where our role is as people who are descendants of enslaved people, and also in the movement in general, how we're everywhere?
Very interesting question. So I'm going to start with a short story. I had the privilege of going to Dakar a couple of months ago, and I went to one of the doors of no return. And as I'm listening to the tour guide and listening to what the experience that the enslaved folks had to go through, right? Enslaved people had to go through the tortures that they went through for months, those that survived or that were rebellious. So I also learned that those who were rebellious and were able to survive the worst tortures that they tried to kill but still managed to stay alive, those were the ones who were sent to countries like Haiti and Jamaica. And that explains, in their tour, they even explain why there was why Haiti is what it is and why we had our first freedom of the slaves in 1804, a revolution in 1804. But that said, listening to them, I was able to understand how, from their standpoint, even though we were enslaved and taken out of our homeland, they see it as it's a glorifying point for them, because we were able to prove that regardless of what you did to us, we still survived. We created nations outside of Africa. We created communities outside of Africa. It is true that we are definitely treated differently. And it is a fact that Black immigrants are treated very differently than other immigrants, than Black and brown immigrants. The experience is very different. The rules that apply to our countries and the way our access to immigration is, for those who work closely with new arrivals, for those who work closely at the border, for those who have to work with folks who get here on a boat on the coast of Florida, you're aware that the treatment is different. And so, and in addition to this, we are also seeing how now this legislative session, and I mean, we've been seeing how racism is now, made dinner table conversation. It is no longer shocking. It is okay to be racist. It is okay to express your anti-Black sentiment. We see how they're trying to erase us, what we did, what we represent, the battles that we fought. I found out recently, because my niece, who's Haitian, is dating a French young man, and I found out recently that in the education in France, French folks are not taught that Haitians won a battle against Napoleon Bonaparte. They are not taught about it at all. And so it is just to show how much whatever we do, the successes that we have, the strength that it takes, and the sweats and tears and blood that we shed to accomplish the people that we are now, it will always be undermined at some point. And so we have to try harder. We have to stand together. But one of the things that I'm experiencing is that we may be more willing to collaborate with others than others are welcoming to us. And there is also this divide between African Americans and Black immigrants that also, it really impacts the power that we can have. It impacts the people that we can be. And it saddens me to see that in spaces where there's talks about Black workers' rights, we had one of our coalition members who attended an event last week, and she called me back to say she was in a Black workers' rights event. And when she mentioned that she's a Black immigrant, they basically told her point blank, this is about African Americans. This is not a space for Black immigrants. So the divide also needs to stop. And it's because we're reproducing the way we're seeing others treat us, and we end up reproducing it ourselves. And so the call, I would say, is let's not make things harder than they need to be. We're stronger unified. And it's not just unified as Black folks. We're stronger unified as human beings. And you said something. And you said something earlier about, let's talk about our similarities. I always say, there is a lot to appreciate in our similarities, but there is so much to enjoy in our differences. Because otherwise the world would be boring, right?
Thank you. Corey, you are the example of someone who is the son of an immigrant, I believe. And so you are the product of what we would call a first generation. Are you first?
I'm first generation, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
African American.
Yeah.
And so you sit at that cusp, but you also are in the world of the Muslims, and consistently since 9/11, you've been whatever the community is, you are the other.
Right.
Tell us how we can work together.
All right. First of all, let me just say that, I'm proud of my history. I'm proud of what African Americans, Africans have meant to this country. This is the greatest country on earth. It really is, because of the hope, not because of always its reality, but the hope of what America means. That all men are created equal, right? Endowed by the Creator certain rights, and that pursuit, right, of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness allows us to coalesce and come together. We may not always be a melting pot, right? But I think somebody described it as a mixed salad, right? And we still retain some of our individualities, and some things work and some things don't work, right? We're imperfect beings. But for me, my dad, in Jamaica, I had a lot of, I really was provided with a lot of opportunities, a lot of things that sometimes you feel above others, right? But then for example, I had somebody who my dad was in the Jamaican Labor Party, and it's amazing because he used to negotiate for both parties. It's like if the Democrats and then the Republicans were working on something and Obama was able to negotiate for Republicans, that's how my dad was respected. He was somebody who coalesced and built. But then a lady who was taking care of me burnt my arm. Actually, I have a tattoo here because she took an iron and burnt me, right? So people can be mean, right? The one thing, so that's in Jamaica, right? With all, elevated. All right, in America, working very hard. My mom worked sometimes 2 jobs. I remember working with her when she first was getting started in America. And I used to listen to Funky Town, and she was cleaning Southern Sanitation, but she went on to work for a bank and then be involved in education. It shows that, there are a lot of possibilities for us here. The one thing that then happened for me is that working with Muslim charities, the amount of Muslim Americans, whether it be they working at a gas station or a doctor or engineer, the amount of people that coalesce, the amount of Muslims that coalesce other members of the community to pack boxes so they can give food away at a food bank. You have, I mentioned yesterday, Mishka Ahmad, who's been working with, Jewish Americans and Christian organizations to help to assimilate Afghani migrants in South Florida. When I was sick and in the hospital, to have Muslim children visit me, right? And I have 38 family members, and hardly only a handful visited me, but all these Muslim kids came to see how I was. My brother, Muqtadir Naim, and he truly is my brother because my mom called him son. Sometimes I actually think that she liked him better than me, but that's okay. The amount of compassion and passion he had for me and my family, it began to really open me up to Islam. So I became what you call a revert. And I took Shahada 2 years ago and began to study. And my mom saw that and saw a change in me. And she even worked harder with me and with, Muslim groups. So for us, 9/11, and there's an organization that they try to put the truth out there, right? It's an inconvenient, uncomfortable truth. But in Bones, they got a story in there about a Muslim doctor who had to deal with the aftermath of 9/11 and some of the injured. And they told him, hey, you're Muslim, you don't have to work on this, it's okay to, to step away. And maybe they were even concerned about the overall, right, atmosphere. And he was like, no, I'm an American. I have to do this. I'm a human being. I have to care for other humans, right? Those stories need to be told because Muslim Americans are Americans. Jewish Americans are Americans, whether you're from Africa or Jamaica, Haiti, we are Americans and we're also human beings. And so we have to speak to our humanity, right? We have to understand that we all want certain things, which are safety and security, and to actually have the ability to procreate and to continue our generations and to live in peace. We share that all together, no matter where you sit in the world. And I truly believe whether it's Allah or God, this world was given to us, and it was given without borders, by the way, as well, right? We've created that. Man, not women for the most part, actually men, right, have created some of these atrocities and animosities. We might be better off turning some of the world over to women, to be honest, right? But let's be honest, let's be real, right? But we need to know that no matter what, we're here. Muslim Americans are here, they're among you. They're doing, ICNA does relief. I saw the Louisiana sheriff talking about how grateful they were for Muslims to come into the area to work hard. We want to be great Americans, whether we're born here, whether we converted, whether we're Muslims from other countries. And we work together, API, Muslim, African Americans. We're actually doing African American policy right now and trying to find African American Muslims, because it's hard, mostly by Muslim first name. So getting help from organizations like State Voices, the Center on Civic Engagement and so forth. Like I said, John is my hero. I'm going to say it again so you can hear it. He's not here, but these are people, Jenna Tingham. These are people that really work hard. The other thing to let you know that Muslims are just around you is one of my professors is Abdul Hernandez, right? Hernandez, because guess what? The largest growing group of Muslims are Latinos. And so as Latinos grow, right, Muslims are growing in that as well, right? Surprise, right? The other thing is that, and I want to speak back to what Tessa said, and I know Marlon knows this as well, notice that as African Americans, we really have learned to, it's more than just a simile. We've learned to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? The xenophobia is less, an inherent factor that really spreads across all Africans, no matter where we are in the diaspora. So for us, seeing a Hispanic commercial in prime time, right? It does give you pause. It's like, what's going on here, right? As we're going to start to see more Spanish and more Latinos, but we're okay with being uncomfortable. And that might be a superpower for Africans in America, right? And I think we're all going to have to learn to be a little uncomfortable and to celebrate each other. We're thankful to be here, and Muslims, again, 9/11 hurt the Muslim community. A lot of Muslims are trying to make up for it when you really don't need to, right? But we've been embraced, and we do work in coalitions, and we are doing the work, and we all feel the threats of a Governor DeSantis when he's trying to be a dictator, or shorten it to DIC, whatever that says, we're all affected, right? And we all can work together. And so anyhow, I'll leave it there, because that's really, we may feel it, right? But then we understand that we're here and we are part of America. We have a responsibility to do what's needed to make America really the best that it can be, and our neighbors as well.
Hello. You are what I would call the American dream, sadly, because you are someone who came to the country, got involved in the country, started building the country, and then actually have an office within the community that you live. And so speak to us how you built that coalition for change, because everybody in your community doesn't look like you. So you can smell it.
Okay. Well, you're right. So I came to this country in 1981 as a young refugee under the Duvalier dictatorship. I never got it. Less than 5% of Haitian refugees who applied for political asylum in the early 80s got it. So under the leadership of Ira Korsban, who's was one of my first boss, as I indicated yesterday, and also still Family Action Network Movement's legal advisor. I worked as a paralegal for 5 years. Then I left to work at a hospital. And then when Jackson Memorial Hospital, which is the county hospital, the major county hospital in Miami. Because while I was at the Haitian Refugee Center, I also went to undergraduate and graduate school. While at Jackson, I realized that oftentimes the disease was not the most important challenge in people's lives. The disease that brought them to the hospital was not the most, the worst things that was happening in their lives at the time. Because my role was as a medical social worker was primarily to be a discharge planner, to make sure that when the patients go home, that they have access to everything that they need to function. And then I realized that oftentimes, there were so many problems, and that the disease was the least of their problems. So after 13 years at Jackson, I decided to leave a good paying job to work full-time in the community, because while there, I also founded FAM. It was called the Haitian Women of Miami at the time. We started providing services mainly to Haitian refugees and their families. Like I said, we provide wraparound services, mental health, access to healthcare, which is a basic human right, access to affordable housing, which is a basic human rights, domestic violence intervention, job training for kids. And then we, at the same time, we organize our members. We are consistently training our members to be their own spokespersons, because we realize that over the course of working and being in the community, being part of the community, that no one can speak better to the challenges that they are facing than those who are directly impacted. So at FAM, we provide wraparound services, but we also organize our members. And then we are right in the middle of the community. We organized many campaigns, such as, the Haitian Refugees Fairness Act of 1998. For those of you who've been working in immigration for the longest time, we've been leading the TPS campaigns for folks from Haiti, Salvador, Nicaragua, countries from Africa. The Haitian Family Reunification Parole. We've organized our members to partake in these campaigns. We've organized thousands and thousands of rallies over the years in front of the immigration. And then we also organized a group called CFAR, Children for Family Reunification, because we realized that when we were organizing the TPS campaign, that oftentimes we forgot about the children. The TPS recipients, among them, have at least over 2 million US-born children. And when Trump terminated TPS, we realized that we had to highlight the cases of these children if their parents were deported. And then luckily, it didn't happen, because under the leadership of Ira Korsban, we brought a lawsuit against the Trump administration, Sage versus Trump, which we won. We realized that we had to highlight the children's plight, and then we created C4 Children for Family Reunification. So we are in the community. We've always worked in coalition. FAM, for example, is a founding member of Florida Immigrant Coalition, founding member of AIJ, founding member of so many organizations, because we realize that we have to unite our strength, right? To be able to build the collective voices of the immigrant populations to fight not only for affordable housing, for comprehensive immigration reform, for access to healthcare, but we also organize to protect LGBTQ plus rights. For example, FAM was part of the campaign for the Human Rights Campaign to give basic rights to the LGBTQ community in the 1990s. And then we work very closely with that community. We also work very closely. I was always a member of a National Organization of Women. And then we're also part of so many coalitions. We held our immigration summit recently. And then some of our partners include, of course, FLEEC, of which we are a founding member, Alliance America, of course, we are a member. We have legal partners such as Southern Poverty Law Center. They've represented us in some of the lawsuits against DeSantis in the past, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to be working together with them again to fight SB 1718, American Friends Service Committee, We Count, Miami Worker Center, Florida Rising. We are part of several most local coalitions, but we also part of national coalitions fighting for TPS recipients to trailblaze a path to permanency, but also fighting for comprehensive immigration reform, because we believe that our immigration system is broken. And then we've always maintained at Family Action Network movement that a piecemeal approach won't work. It won't work. It won't work. We have to continue to fight for comprehensive immigration reform so that the over 2 million TPS recipients can find a path to permanency. The 800,000 plus DACA recipients can find a path to permanency. The 11 to 19 million undocumented of this nation can find a path to permanency so that they can live free of fear. Because until then, every day in their lives, they have to deal with that threat of some criminals, poor leaders coming and then trying to do to what our governor is doing in Florida. So we have to do our best to use our collective strengths, and that's the only way we can do it, to make sure that immigrant families are protected. We can do it. And to do so, and I'm going to end on that note, to do so, we have to lead the fire under, both parties.
Yep.
Under both parties. Because we believe that if our leaders, those who are elected, have the will, if they have the will, they can work in a bipartisan manner to create this path to permanency. That's why we cannot be afraid to really call them to task. And that's why I ran for office, because I realized that we not only have to organize our members to build collective power so that we can move the needle of power to our advantage, but we also need to organize political power and occupy political spaces with people who believe in our rights to exist, in our rights to be.
Right. I think you should say that louder for the AILA community.
When I ran, very few people believed that I could win, because I had so many folks who didn't want me to win, starting with the developers, because Family Action Network movement has led a fight for people to be, for people not to be erased, for people who build their niche, their villages, to be able to live in them. So my opponent had a lot of money, over 3 million, and I was only able to raise $500,000. But guess what? People knew, people understood what we were about. I knocked on thousands and thousands and thousands of doors, but most importantly, over the course of 40 years, they've seen us in action. We've knocked on their doors. We have a robust civic engagement component. We've knocked on their doors for years, because we believe that our democracy is stronger with a consistently engaged and participating constituency.
Right.
That's why at FAM, we are always knocking on doors. Elections or no elections, we are engaging the community, rain or shine. Every 2 weeks, we have community meetings where we let them, we talk to them, we hear their concerns, and then together we find pathways to strengthen our residents, our community members, so they can fight back. Thank you so much.
So as we move, I want to make sure, yes, clap, absolutely. You could definitely run for office. As we move towards the close of this panel, I want to open up to questions, because while you have people here, if there's questions that you would like to have addressed from them, I am not the only person to ask questions. If you could write them down and bring them up, I'm happy to ask those questions. We're going to move to the ask portion from them so that they can tell you exactly what they need from us. Because when you show up to a movement, this is the way you show up. How can I help you? Can you give me the 1 minute? How can I help you?
Yeah, I think the main thing is Florida's worth fighting for. There's 23 million people here.
We have members here.
We have members here. We have 800,000 undocumented people here. We have hundreds of thousands mixed status families here. What are we gonna tell them? That they're not worth it? That they're not worth us taking some time and going back against this narrative that Florida's a gone place, this weird place where like bad things happen? No, and the reality is most of our immigrant communities, they don't have the luxury to get up tomorrow and say, I'm moving across the country, right? Most of them are living paycheck to paycheck. They can't come out and say, okay, I'm gonna move and I'm gonna do this thing. And I think with a lot of national groups and the conversation I've been a part of nationally, people just say, oh, Florida's such a waste of resources. Florida's this thing, Florida's that thing. And at the end of the day, we ignore and we forget why we get into this work, which is to help people, regardless of where they live. And the reality is, this is a metastasizing cancer. They are utilizing what they're doing here to take away rights for people across the country. It's not just here. Like we just saw in Texas, they were trying to push for legislation so that undocumented kids couldn't have access to public education. And they've clearly said here in the state of Florida that the reason they're doing this and passing these laws that they know are unconstitutional is so that they can bring it up to the Supreme Court, where they now think that they can win and take away people's basic human rights. What's happening here, the right wing is paying attention to everywhere else, to submit copycat bills on all of the legislation around transgender issues, around the LGBTQ community, around immigrants' rights. So if we don't fight it here, then we're all in trouble. Not just the people who are here. So my ask to you is, whatever you are, help us change that narrative and help start saying, of course, Florida's worth fighting for. Of course, we're gonna fight for the 800,000 undocumented immigrants who call Florida home. We can do it, but we need you. And we need to start flipping this narrative, because when we get out there to do this work, obviously it takes resources. Obviously, it takes support from different groups. When we're out there and funders tell us Florida's a waste of time, Florida's a waste of resources, then our work becomes much more difficult. So what you can do is help us shift the narrative. Florida's worth it. I assure you, we have people here, like people in this panel, who are fighting hard against this cancer, this fascism. But we need you, and we need you to really help change the narrative.
Thank you, Ms. Debbie.
It's been pretty depressing with DeSantis in charge. He's a racist, he's a sexist, he's a misogynist, he is anti-immigration, he's anti-education, he's anti-anything that we would like to see in our country. He's made it very difficult to believe in anything that he says, and it's hard to fight when he's got the legislators doing his bidding. However, we are trying, we had a number of laws that were passed that were horrible for Floridians, and one of them was voter suppression. And we're working through a grant on a new way to approach voter registration, which doesn't involve collection. And we're real excited about that. And we have groups working with us, and it is that. Go on, Misha. What we're doing is, instead of, the laws made it very difficult for people to do voter registration without fines. Okay, without fines and jail, or doing a misdemeanor. What we did was came up with a voter registration form that has return mail on it. So when we get it, it goes in the mail, and we avoid all the voter suppression laws. And we're working it across the state. Hopefully it'll move to other states too. But this way we don't have to deal with their rules.
I think you can see that we actually all do work together, right? And And we're all facing the same threat, right? And then also the same opportunity, right? Because this is an opportunity as well.
And I've got to give credit to Joe Scott from Broward County. He started this and he ordered 500,000 of these pieces. So we're really excited about what Broward County is doing. But my big ask, I don't know how many Floridians are here, but any Floridian, we are in the heavy working on gathering petitions to get abortion on the 2024 ballot. It's something that's giving everybody hope. You know, after the 6-week ban was voted through and all the other things that we can't affect, the 2024 ballot initiative for abortion is something that gives us hope. This is the petition. It's real easy to fill out. You just have to write neatly or they throw them out. But we would love, if you're a Florida registered voter, come to me and I'll give you a petition, or go in the to the tables and we have petitions. So that's my big ask. The other ask is that immigration law is biased against women, and anything you can do to decrease that bias or coach women, especially keeping all the documents of threats and things like that, are important to them making their case.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And for those of the video, we're gonna have a link on the website somewhere that you can get this petition if you're Floridian. And there's also a national petition from the NOW organization that we'll try to make available to you.
And it's real easy, FloridaFLNow.org.
Thank you. The list could be long, but I'm going to keep it short. We do have a lot of activities happening around the state to protect our undocumented community members. So I would urge everyone in the room to volunteer to protect our communities with the Know Your Rights session, the safety plans. We also have 800,000 LPRs eligible to become US citizens. I would encourage lawyers to please give us pro bono hours to help these folks fill out their naturalization. We also know, and we've done these in the past, statistics have proven that about 20% of people who get 20 minutes in front of a lawyer have an opportunity, discover that they're eligible for some sort of relief. We're also doing what we're calling Protect the People clinics. And that is where we give someone an opportunity to spend 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes with a lawyer and to determine whether or not they're eligible for some form of relief. Those do work. The volunteer opportunities for lawyers are virtual and in person. You visit our website, flake.org. I also have my director of services here who has a QR code to please register. The second thing is, all this wouldn't have happened if folks who voted for those bills didn't vote for them. And so what we're asking, there is a shortage of valuable candidates in the state. Run for office. Do like Marlene Bastien did. Take a leap, represent your people. We need people who care to be in office. We're also running our accountability campaign. We're launching our accountability campaign July 1st because we want to hold, everybody talks about what the DeSantis did. But at the end of the day, senators and House representatives voted for these bills. And so it is time we hold them accountable. They're going to be in their offices. They're going to be in district. There are ways to hold them accountable. We are also launching a digital campaign that will give everyone in the state an opportunity to send a letter to their representative or to their senator, to also send a letter to their member of Congress, to ask them to support permanent or more definite immigration reform, to give a path to citizenship to at least 8 or 9 million out of the 11 million undocumented who are now in this country. And we know that 70% of Americans across the aisle said that they believe that those folks should have access to a path to citizenship. And last but not least, you heard it from Samuel. It has been now 3 years Organizations like us, when we're doing electoral work, when we're encouraging people to show up and vote, it takes resources. It's been 3 years already. We're funded by foundation, national donors. And for the last 3 years, they have walked away from Florida. And last year, we worked with almost nothing. I know almost all of us here had to dig into our reserves to try to do something to protect some races. And this year again, I'm already hearing, this week alone, I heard of 2 national funders who are walking away from Florida. So they're not going to be here next year. And next year, there are seats. We may lose more Democratic seats. We may flip some Republican seats. At the end of the day, we need to reestablish the balance. A supermajority in a Republican trifecta is what explains what happened to us. Democracy is about balance. And so what I'm asking you, we're going to have to do this work as Floridians. And as Floridians, we're going to show that we can do it ourselves. So I will encourage you to start finding your home now, your electoral home, your political home, where you're going to be able to volunteer, where you're going to be able to do some civic education, civic engagement, where you're going to be able to help register people to vote, and where you're going to be able to make phone calls. Thank you.
Sure. If I may add something to that, on the supermajority piece, there's already conversations about changing the Florida Constitution so that the abortion referendum, for instance, if voters were to implement it, they could go back and say, we have a supermajority, we can call a new constitution, and we can get rid of all of these amendments. Because at the end of the day, if you look at all of the issues here in the state, most voters agree with increasing the minimum wage, 62%, probably abortion, we're talking about 65%, medical marijuana got 63%, we had the rights restoration got 64%. Vast majority of Floridians agree on a lot of these issues. And what they want to do now with their supermajority is take away all of these rights that people have voted for. So that's why it's so important to get involved in this electoral work, because in order for us to bring balance, there has to be some level of breaking that supermajority. And people are getting really creative on how to get hold people accountable. The state legislator actually, I believe in this district, Carolina Mesty is actually Venezuelan. I'm Venezuelan myself, as I mentioned before. And she had been fighting out there against immigrants and was one of the champions of SB 1718. Her family has a church. And guess what? Last Sunday, people walked out of the church to protest the fact that she had voted for this legislation. So people are getting creative, but we need your help. Mr. Corey, what's the ask?
Yeah, all right. First of all, I'm going to direct you all to our website, which is mgageusa.org. And I know up there they actually have it as Engage, but it's Engage with an M. So it's EM Gauge, because we are a Muslim organization in the end. But again, we are your brothers and sisters, and we work on behalf of everyone and take everyone into consideration. So my ask would be if you could go to that website and just see who these Muslims are, right? See people like Khurram Wahid, who handles criminal law, everything from minor things to, he at one point he may still have, he had 8 murder cases, yet he's always available. If I call him now, he'll pick up the phone. He won't be in front of a judge. That's usually the only reason why. Your Muslim brothers and sisters are out here working. We're working across coalitions. The next thing I have to say is really statevoices.org. We got a chance, Tamara Iron, who was executive director of the Broward County Democratic Party, and then executive director of Engage, actually, because we all are related, then went to State Voices, and within a couple of weeks, she went from number 3 to number 1, because she's that dynamic. I'd ask for you to look at State Voices. I'd ask for you to look at FLIC, the Florida Immigration Coalition, because this group, these are our heroes as well. What Marlon's doing with the Family Action Network movement, I've heard about it growing up, not growing up, but actually, as a young professional coming through. So definitely let's support each other. It is true, monies are drying up. I will say this, and I'll tell you a story maybe that will hit a little closer to home. Personally, me, I mean, I graduated Georgetown University senior of the year. You know, I roomed with Jeff Rothschild. Malcolm Lee was my big brother in school, you know, director of Girl Trip, undercover brother and all that. I went to school with Will Eisner, Breck Eisner, Will Eisner's son, Will Archer, member of parliament from UK and the author, his son. I'm not as smart as them. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not, no, I'm not just saying that. They had a way head start on me, but I will outwork anybody. And I graduated Georgetown University, a single mom who packed boxes and sent for everybody, right? I don't know how she carried them, how they got anywhere, but it's just the strength of a mother. And I graduated senior of the year, right? Believing in faith, leadership, and excellence, presented to me by Father Leo J. O'Donovan. I'm telling you, I was not the smartest. 1360 SAT, people had way higher than that. You know, whatever, 160 on the LSAT, all that stuff. People had higher than that at Georgetown University, but I worked. And I believe me, I'm working. Right now, I'm working for a quarter of my salary because even $100,000 that was coming May 8th hasn't come yet. I'm okay with doing that. I volunteered for a while. I don't live for money, but I do have a granddaughter on the way, by the way, if I can get an applause on that. Baby 7 coming in October. So if you do want to donate and help me out, you know, I may want a little more than a quarter of my salary. But listen, this has meaning. And I talked to Quorum's brother and said, I'm not stopping. I'm working on these issues. I think we're at a turning point, believe it or not, when the pressure is on, when everybody's paying attention, because the worst part is when we're working on this stuff and nobody's listening, right? Everybody's paying attention now. So my ask, right, and I'm going to tell a story first. I'm going to tell us. Oh, you don't have, okay. Oh, sorry about that. All right. Well, there's a young lady out there who I knew was helping me, that felt the pressure of being undocumented. Her brother was about to come through it after she already went to college. Now her brother had to go through it. And I saw a story about this, another individual. I want you to think of the people that have so much pressure on them that they don't know if they made it through. They don't know if their younger brothers and sisters are going to make it through. I would ask that do the little things, do what you can in your position at your job to push on immigration policy, to help immigrants get information, access to information. Do the little things. Those little things matter. Okay. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank, you know, Alan, I want to thank you for the panel and for the insightful questions.
Please close this down.
Thank you so
And
much.
Speakers will be in the lobby afterwards so that you're able to talk to them and commune with them about the organizations, the petitions in the lobby. So please check it out.
I realize that our time is up. So I thank you for participating in this workshop. I hope that you heed the call, TESA's calls, and you heed the calls of most of us at the table to come and volunteer. I mean, Florida is going through a difficult time, but it is also a time of opportunities. This is not the time to give up on Florida. We must stand up with Florida, because Florida will represent what the rest of the country look like in 20, 50 years. So we must make Florida an example where immigrants can live in respect and dignity like any human being deserves. So if you a lawyer, you'd like to volunteer, as Tessa indicated, we at Family Action Network Movement, we need your support. We have a full clinic. We provide legal services, family reunification, citizenship. We need you. We need your support. You can also help us because we do virtual organizing. You don't have to be in Miami to help us. You can help us virtually. So consider that. We do a lot of door knocking, canvassing, get out the vote. If you have some time, it can be 3 months, join us. We will put you to work based on your on what you want to do, right? We also, I'd like to highlight, and then I'm going to end it on this note. I'd like to highlight the Be My Vote campaign, because we need to bring as many people together, you know, to fight back. The Be My Vote campaign was organized by FUM to get the support for those folks who are not US citizens, who cannot vote, to get the support of others to vote for them. Only 16% of folks in Florida votes. We need more. So for the Be My Vote campaign, if you are a member of the DACA, you know, Encourage people to vote, to vote for you. You're part of the 800,000 DACA recipients. Encourage people to vote for you. If you're a member of the 11 million to 19 million, encourage US citizens to vote on your behalf. If you're a member of the over 2 million TPS recipients, be my vote, ask folks to be their votes. So I hope that we can replicate that nationwide to really build this progressive immigrants movement in Florida. And then we make Florida an example of a place where we all can live free of fear. We deserve that. The immigrants deserve that. They contribute, they give in, they keep their end of the bargain days in and days out. They deserve to live in peace and harmony, free of fear. We thank you so much.
Thank you.
Please join us if you can. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. So this panel was the moment. What you do when you leave this room is the movement, and it's up to you to decide where you fit into this. And AILA made the space for this. And so I want to thank XCOM for being here this morning, and the conference committee for organizing this, and the members for participating in it. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of our panelists. We're on a break until 10:30.